and boom goes the dynamite.
And welcome back to the only Monday through Friday live lacrosse talk show. I am your host, Michael Karvelis. This is Daily Dive. Good morning to everyone on the West Coast and to my friends here on the East Coast. It's time for lunch. Let's talk some lacrosse. On today's show, our top story will be Brett Dobson has won Rookie of the Week again. I will break down why I think he should win Rookie of the Year. Also, what has gone wrong for Saskatchewan this year? After watching the Rush game against the Swarm in person and noticing an interesting stat, I'll tell you it might be down to one person. Also, our big guest by Fanatics will be Ryan Ballantine. You know him, you love the beard, you love the person. He'll be talking Calgary Roughnecks after they beat down the road team in Panther City. And also, our last brew by B-Riz Coffee Company code Daily Dive, Kellen LeClair is being tossed around between contenders. Why I think his newest team could push them over the top. And you might be surprised with what I'll say there. Our top story is presented by our store. Head to Daily Dive Lax on social medias and our YouTube. Click the link tree and shop our store. It's the only place to get awesome merchandise with this logo on it. So go to Daily Dive Lax, click on our store, and you can get awesome merchandise again with this awesome Daily Dive branded logo. Our top story, Brett Dobson won Rookie of the Week again. NLL, of course, does this every week with their Player of the Week and Rookie of the Week. Now, I believe this is back-to-back weeks now, could be more, for Brett Dobson of the Georgia Swarm, their rookie goalie. And, of course, Christian Del Bianco won it for the Player of the Week. So, all love to the goalies this week, okay, which is stinking awesome. I would show the graphic, but it's got Gatorade all over it. Someone spilled the sponsors. I'm kidding. But I wanted to break this down why I think Brett Dobson has been not just Rookie of the Year, but the entire reason the Swarm are winning. So in the first two games of the season for the Georgia Swarm, they were, of course, 0-2. Now, I know they started 0-7. Dobson did not come in until game number 3. And he's right now, including the 0-5 start for himself and the winning 7 of 8, including the last 5, Brett Dobson has a 78.6 save percentage. That includes performances like 11 goals against Buffalo on the road when he allowed 14 the previous week at home, 7 and 10 in the Toronto games, respectively, although they were losses. If you allow 7 and 10 against Toronto, I expect Lyle Thompson and others to show up, and they obviously did not. The last 4 games, I know what you're going to say. Well, 2 games are against New York. Okay, but the last 2 are Halifax and Saskatchewan, a hungry Saskatchewan team. 8, 7, 5, and 9. That's Brett Dobson's last 4 goals allowed. That's mighty impressive when everyone knows your team is getting hot. Now, who is this competition in this Rookie of the Year race? So let's go and break this down. Jack Hanna of the Desert Dogs. A lot of people like him. He's got 53 points. But on his same team, Rob Hellier has 82 points and has been by far the best player. And John Phillips on his own team has 39 points, another rookie that I don't hear anyone talking about. So I would say we could disqualify Jack Hanna, especially since Las Vegas is lost. And the reason I'm saying that, I'll tell you in just a second. Panther City, Jonathan Donville, he has 82 points, but he plays with Callum Crawford, Will Malcolm, Patrick Dodds, Phil Caputo. I think if Brett Dobson goes off the next 3 games, like keeps it up, and Swarm like win 2 of the next 3, I think if they make the playoffs, winning 2 of the next 3, I think Brett Dobson should win Rookie of the Year. Again, We disqualified Jack Hanna because another rookie on his own team has just 13 less points. We can kind of neutralize Jonathan Donville. Probably he's the biggest competition here because he plays with Callum Crawford, Will Malcolm, Patrick Dodson, Phil Caputo. Brett Dobson has set the bar to where you have to win, which again disqualifies Jack Hanna. And in a race where all three of these guys are awesome, again, you have to nitpick. Just like I did with my top 5 players, I had to nitpick greatness, okay? It's hard to do, but I'm willing to do the tough work for you. So notice how Brett Dobson started playing amazing and the Swarm have rattled off 7 of 8. That means something. It means a lot. And when you allow 7 goals against Toronto and then 10 goals against Toronto, when you bounce back against Buffalo, even though you lost all 4 of those games, Brett Dobson matters. And let me tell you this. Watching Brett Dobson in person, he was absolutely sensational. He is so locked in. I only saw him on my side of the floor twice. I was not sitting in the middle. I was sitting towards the end, like near where everybody stands in like the empty area, kind of similar to what Colorado does. And you can see me, talking my stuff over there on the ESPN Plus broadcast. If you look close enough, I'm in a black AM Drive hoodie. But I think Brett Dobson, again, if you're going to beat Albany, Rochester's going to be tough because it's in Rochester. Although technically you're going from Albany to Rochester, although you have to go back home to work, but you get it. And then Halifax. He's already played well against Halifax once or twice. I believe. Let me make sure of that. Brett Dobson against Halifax. Let's see here. I believe he had a good game against them. Yeah, he allowed 5 goals. Okay, I don't even know how to look that up. He allowed 5 goals a couple of weeks ago. So if they can make the playoffs, he wins 2 of the next 3, and Jonathan Donville is still playing with Callum Crawford, Will Malcolm, Patrick Dodson, Phil Caputo, I think there's a strong case that Brett Dobson should win Rookie of the Year. And finally, in our first segment, what went wrong for Saskatchewan? Well, after seeing the stats, I boiled it down to, I hate to say this, one player. This one player is 33 years old. And this one player has played in 15 or more games, if you include this season, in 9 of his 10 career seasons. Okay? He has played 18 games 7 times of his 10 years. The guy is a staple in Saskatchewan. But Mark Matthews, in wins, has averaged 8 points. In losses, he's averaged 3. When I tell you in person, 6'5", 230, he looked every bit of that, but he also looked every bit of 33, having the mileage that he does. It goes back to what I said about Saskatchewan before. Trade some of these guys, and maybe not Mark Matthews, because he obviously has been a staple of consistency and does not get hurt, apparently. That's evidence. 167 games played all 18 games 7 times, and a chance to do it an 8th time this season. But give this man some help. Again, I saw like one time where he wanted to cuss out a referee, and that's low for Mark Matthews. Setting over-under on that's low. I thought it was an interesting staple there. For a guy who's been so consistent to have these 3-piece McNugget meals, which don't exist, by the way, it's something to think about for Saskatchewan Rush moving forward. All righty, when I come back, it's time to talk to Ryan Ballantine of the Calgary Roughnecks. He's an analyst for them, and they looked pretty good against Panther City. We'll talk to him next, among other things. This Daily Dive, don't go anywhere. Ballantine is back. The beard seems to be healthy. And you were bobbing your head during the break. I do the same. I don't know if you saw me, but I saw you.
Yeah, solid bit of music, gets you going, gets you ready to chat lacrosse.
Right. That part is royalty free. Apparently our last segment is not, but whatever. That's a story for another day. How are you doing, Ryan Ballantine? Welcome back.
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me back again. It's really good to be talking Roughnecks lacrosse here in Calgary right now. They're on the verge of setting some franchise marks, and so could be looking to see what they're able to do here.
First of all, tell me what those franchise marks are, because was not aware of that.
Well, they do have the most wins in a season is 12, so they could match that this week, and then set that later towards the end of the season here. So the most the Roughnecks have ever won for games in the season is 12. Wow. Now, granted, you have some 16 game seasons in there, some 18 game seasons in there, but nevertheless, they've never put up more than 12 wins. And they've got 11 so far with a chance of breaking that franchise mark.
I dig that. And we'll get to that game in just a second, but I want to break down this one because I hate doing the jet lag argument here. But you guys go to San Diego, and Calgary doesn't look great because, what can you do? San Diego's hot, and you have to fly down south. Now, the next week, Panther City comes from Fort Worth, Texas to you without Callum Crawford, and you guys beat them down. How on earth was that possible with Calgary winning that game? What was the keys to that win, do you think?
Well, I think when you look at what Calgary does best, Christian Del Bianco, that's first and foremost. I saw your post yesterday about the best 5 players in the NLL right now, and that Del Bianco's not on that list is a travesty. The guy is absolutely, for my money, the best goaltender in the National Lacrosse League, with apologies to Nick Rose. I think when you look at what Del Bianco has done this season, he has absolutely been the best of the best of the best. For my, when I get my MVP ballot, Christian Del Bianco is number 1 on that list. I think he has absolutely been the MVP in the National Lacrosse League this year. I don't think that there has been a more consistent week in, week out performer than Del Bianco. And so I would suggest that he should be the MVP. So that he wasn't even in your top 5 is crazy to me. You want to look at some Eastern biases and put some of those stuff in and see those things not play out, and he's a little lower on your list. Maybe we could have chatted, but yeah, Del Bianco, for my money, has been the best player in the NLL this year.
So the reason I put him put Matt Vince at 5, I feel like every week I'm going to put like a goalie at 5. I personally believe goalies are more important than that. But the reason I put Matt Vince up there is because I feel like Calgary's team defense is better. And I want to ask you this: how much of a goalie success, especially in Calgary, is the team defense, or just, because Christian Del Bianco is pretty awesome, but how much of if you could give a percentage out of 100, how much of it is Del Bianco, how much of it is team defense? I'm just wondering.
Well, I think when you look at what other teams are doing, what Del Bianco stops that a lot of NLL goalies don't is those rapid side-to-side quick stick opportunities that are typically buried on most teams' opportunities, and that doesn't happen against Del Bianco. He's able to get side-to-side very quickly. He makes saves that you don't expect him to make. And I think that's what you're really looking for in the NLL this year. Yes, the team defense is great. Guys like Eli Salama, Reese Callies are out there. They're doing their work every single week. You've got Courier back there as well, creating turnovers and grabbing loose balls. There's not a lot of second opportunities that Del Bianco has to face, but that doesn't mean that he's still not facing a ton of shots. When you see what Del Bianco has faced this year from a goalie standpoint, he is leading the league in shots against. No goalie has faced more shots than Del Bianco through 16 games. No goalie has made more saves. He's got the highest save percentage in the league over Nick Rose, even though he's got fewer shots or fewer goals against, or a slightly higher goals against. When you look at that and you see that that Del Bianco's faced that many shots, the most in the league this season, that adds up, and he's allowed the second fewest amount of goals.
That's a good point, because I like that you bring this stat up, because you said he doesn't have a lot of second chances, but teams are still peppering him, which is awesome.
They're getting down there and getting one shot, or they'll be kind of two or three right on top of it. But there's not a lot of guys that are missing Christian Del Bianco, if that makes sense. So when they're taking shots, they're not shots that are wide, they're not shots attempted, they're shots on goal, and Del Bianco's been able to stop them.
He did win Player of the Week, and that was good for the NLL again.
Yes, so. Yeah, I think allowing 5 last week. I mean, it was ridiculous that, like, you're seeing performances week in, week out that would be the best performance of the year from any other goalie, and you're getting it almost every week from Del Bianco.
Maybe it's because I feel like Calgary is like the San Antonio Spurs of the NLL. Like, no one talks about them, but they probably should. And I feel like Del Bianco is like the Tim Duncan. He just does his job. Doesn't have a split sleeve like Rylan Hartley. Doesn't have the Rosie call, but you might make a good point.
Yeah, Del Bianco, I think, I think a lot of lacrosse media are Eastern time zone based.
Ooh.
So maybe they're not seeing a lot of Del Bianco's games because they don't start until 9:30, 10 o'clock Eastern time. And by the time the game is over, those guys have already gone to bed. They just assume that the Roughnecks are going to do what they do. When you look at their record this year, I think the only danger that they face right now is going to be the battle between them and San Diego come the playoffs. Those two teams, they're 2-1 against each other, and there's a lot of offensive weapons on that Seals team, and they're pretty dangerous, obviously. And a lot of them know Del Bianco very well because most of their offense is former Roughnecks.
Right. So who does the advantage go to? I'll shift to that first.
Sure.
Like as we preview the San Diego, it's like you said, Calgary's 1-2 versus San Diego, but Calgary, they played them close besides the last matchup. And that, to me, I say is not very fair, because I do think jet lag's a thing. But who do you give the advantage to? Do you give it to the goalie who knows the players, or the players who know the goalie?
Well, I think in this case, I'd probably go to the players who know the goalie, mostly because, when you've got guys like Dane Doby, Wes Berg, Curtis Dixon, these are guys that know how to get open. And when you've got an open look and a goalie's tendencies pretty well from practicing with him for years and years and years, you might be able to fake him out a little bit. So it's entirely possible that the Roughnecks could beat the Seals in a playoff game. I think it's a lot closer than people might consider that to be happening. And then when you look at the Seals, only have 3 losses. One of those is to the Roughnecks. And the Seals are really the only team that's been able to score on Calgary this season. When you run down the list, I think that the Seals are the only team that have gone over 12 goals against this Roughnecks defense. And they've done it twice, or they've done it all 3 times. But the one game Calgary won 17-14. So I think in those instances, they're the only team that's been able to solve Del Bianco, and I think it's just because of familiarity.
Money, like if you had the money to give, I know you guys aren't allowed to do this. I am. Would your money be on Calgary or San Diego? Because to me, San Diego, despite what you just said, has been inconsistent still. I don't see, they struggle sometimes.
I like that a team is 12-3 and you're worried about their consistency. But obviously I'm not allowed to gamble on National Lacrosse League games or suggest gambling. But if I were setting the spread on that game, I would set it at maybe a goal and a half. I would say a goal and a half is probably the spread. I think you have to favor the Seals given what they've done to the Roughnecks this year. But I would say that spread would probably be no more than a goal and a half.
I like how you knifed through that, because that was my fault on that. But give me just a straight up prediction. Who do you think wins the series when if and when these two teams meet in the playoffs?
I want to say when, because I think that looks like what's going to happen here in the Western Conference, or the West Division, sorry. But I think when we see that, I I don't know that it's a sweep one way or another. I think when we look at the playoff format, I think it would come down to a tiebreaker type situation. And as the Roughnecks guy, I'd love for it to be the Roughnecks, obviously. Right. And as a guy that has relationships with so many of the guys on the Seals because they played here first. I couldn't help but be happy for any of those guys if they were get a shot at another ring. So I think when you talk about guys like Dane Dobie and Curtis Dixon, I think they're absolutely class acts. And I'd love to see them get a shot at another championship. I just wouldn't want it to come at the expense of the Roughnecks.
I felt the pain in your heart on that. I felt that from here. I get that. I'll ask you this because I feel like you guys can beat Vegas, and that I was going to ask you that, but let's do this one instead. And this will throw your curveball here.
Sure.
You mentioned the class acts of Curtis Dixon and Dane Dobie, and I have to admit, seeing Dane Dobie a few times lose his temper is interesting. But I know these guys are probably the nice guys. Who is the nicest of the three current Seals that you were like, dang, I really want to see him succeed?
I think. Oh, that's tough.
Are they all three pretty cool?
So yeah, from a personal standpoint, so Dane Dobie and I have always gotten along. That we've that guy is so much fire on the floor, but off the foot. The minute the game is over, that dude is calm, collected, relaxed.
That's awesome.
Good to talk. Like it is, his fire is competitive. It's not, those guys that you run into in sports sometimes, that they're the same guy on the floor that they are off the floor or the field. That's not the case right with Dane Dobie. Dane Dobie is, he's got his kids and a very loving father and everything. Like Dane Dobie's a class act. But Curtis Dixon, on the other hand, I've known Curtis pretty much his entire career. And so watching his progression through to now becoming just the 8th player to score 500 goals, that felt fantastic to see him reach that milestone. The last time the Roughnecks won the championship here, he gave his stick to my son.
Wow.
And then my son went on to score 60 goals with it in his next lacrosse season. So he felt really good about getting Curtis's stick. And Curtis was surprised that my son was able to use it given the depth of his pocket. But man, those guys, it's really hard to kind of go through that whole era of Roughnecks. Even going back to Sean Evans, Jeff Shatler, Caleb Toth, all of these guys that have been the stars here in Calgary. I think lacrosse athletes more than any other sport are completely approachable. They're lunch bucket guys that you just want to see do well. And I haven't run into anybody in the NLL that I was like, that I thought, that guy's a
scumbag,
a bit of a dick. I haven't run into anybody like that. And even hell, when Jeff Snyder came to town, everybody was worried about the reputation that he'd bring with him. And he was, again, just a total ambassador for the sport and a great dude.
Now you make me feel bad for criticizing these guys sometimes.
You know what? You can criticize them on the floor. That's fine. That's on the floor play is fair game. But like I said, I've never run into anybody through the Roughnecks organization that's ever, a guy that I would question their character.
I love this is why I like guests like you, because I can just ask those questions and get awesome stories and insight. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
That works. And thanks for joining us again. Real quickly, are you guys going to beat Vegas? And if so, how bad? I'm kidding.
I mean, I think Calgary needs to keep rolling. They need to keep this momentum going. They need to prove to themselves, because this is still a very young team. They need to prove to themselves that they can beat Vegas now, so that if there's a playoff matchup, they can have that confidence going into it. I think at this moment, the way Del Bianco is playing, I think Calgary can beat anybody.
Oh, there you have it. Champions, maybe.
Maybe.
Thanks so much, Brian Ballantine. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Anytime, every time. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again. All right, so that's always fun Ryan Ballantine. Not only does he have a great beard, he has great stories and awesome insight. He's one of my favorite guests. If I had to choose one, I'll do that. I say he's one of my favorite guests that we've had continue on the show. Thank you so much for him and every great guest that comes on the show. Big guest by Fanatics, Daily Dive Lax. Click the Fanatics link, shop NLL and other sports. It helps us out tremendously. When I come back, someone's being passed around between contenders, and I'd say the contender that recently got this guy gained a pretty good player, especially for them. We'll break that down for you next, but first, one more commercial break. Daily Dive. That's the wrong one. Ha! Last Brew presented by B-Riz Coffee Company. That's B-R-E-Z Coffee Company. Code Daily Dive at checkouts. So first of all, happy inauguration or happy birthday. I don't know if it's really a birthday, but like happy creation day to B-Riz Coffee Company. It is their birthday today for that company. Go there and check out their awesome coffee flavors. Now's the time. Help those people out. B-Riz Coffee Company. Best flavors made for gamers by gamers. That's awesome. Okay, so Kellen LeClair is a 28-year-old defenseman, 6'3", 210. That's tall. He's played in 27 career games and was let go by Buffalo Bandits yesterday. So let me give you a stat to lead this show. Kellen LeClair this season in just 12 games has 43 loosies, 9 caused turnovers, and 8 blocked shots. Here are the Buffalo Bandits that have blocked 8 or more shots. Nick Weiss, Ethan O'Connor, and Steve Priolo. Here are the San Diego Seals picked up Kellen LeClair today, or yesterday, maybe today. You get it. One day later, they picked him up. The Seals, here are their players that have picked up, that have blocked 8 shots. Cameron Holding. That's it. Kellen LeClair joining San Diego is a pretty big deal that will not be talked about because he doesn't score like at all. And let me not do him short here, but I'm pretty sure in these games, he's got 0 points. He's taking only 2 shots in 27. Well, let me not lie. Okay. He's taken 2 shots in his NLL career, might be 3. They claim there's a goal in there in 2016. I don't know about that. Let me see. 2016, there's a goal against the New England Black Wolves. They don't count. I'm kidding. So Kellen LeClair, not flashy, but does his job, signs with a 1-year agreement with the Seals. That's impressive. I'm telling you, that's going to mean something. When the Seals defense gets even better, that helps a guy like Frank Scigliano who struggled to start the season. I just had to put that out there. Thanks so much for awesome people that join the show and are behind the scenes of the show. For awesome guests like Ryan Ballantine. We've got a big guest coming up next week. For all of you who join the show and talk about the show, thank you so much. It means a boatload to me and my family. This has been Daily Dive. We will see you guys tomorrow on Thursday's edition. We're talking playoff scenarios. that should be a loaded show. And if you're an Albany or New York Riptide or Saskatchewan Rush fan, I'm not going to do that again. But yeah, you'll want to tune in regardless. It's Daily Dive. Thanks so much again. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of your hump day. Bye.